Okay, so right off the bat, if you haven't seen Oldboy, anyone who spoils the twist for you deserves to be dropped off a cliff by John Matrix. So if you haven't seen the film, go now, and come back when you have, because I will be sharing broad thoughts on the whole thing, spoilers and all, kind of with the assumption that you've seen it too. I'll give you the usual countdown before I get into that kind of territory, so that's 2 warnings, okay? Immunity. Also, do not let anyone convince you that the shitty Spike Lee remake is better, okay? Okay. Prior to the theatrical re-release of Neon's 4K restoration of Oldboy, director Park Chan-wook made this very interesting statement.
올드보이는 20년이나 된 작품이기 때문에 아직도 이 영화가 작동하는지 검증될 수 있다면, 그 시련을 통과할 수 있다면 그 테스트가 이번에 이루어지는 것 같아서 정말 긴장이 되고 떨립니다.
And for a 20-year-old South Korean revenge film packed with emotional, psychosexual discomfort and complexity, brutal violence, and surrealist flourishes, it sure has been a box office smash again. I would say the film's reputation is now more or less set in stone. Though that reputation in itself, as something of a cult shock opera, sells the film short. This might be the iconic and oft-imitated Hallway Oneer's fault, partially.
My dreams all fade away.
Or knee-jerk responses to the harrowing ending revelation. Though that sequence and that ending are also full of details that enhance the characters and pay off the many overt allusions to Greek mythology and Oedipus Rex. The employ of Oldboy's violence is more aestheticized, Shakespearean, bold, and tragic than it is aiming for some kind of visceral gross-out. Though I did go to the dentist literally the day after my screening, and I can't say I recommend that. The violence is also offset, importantly, by a lot of humor. While my audience was pretty nails, no walkouts or even pee breaks that I took note of, there was a little apprehension to laugh at the film's many, many humorous moments.
사실은 그보다는 저는 올드보이야말로 코미디로 느껴졌으면 좋겠어요. 그런 마음으로 만들었습니다. 이 영화는 복수와 뭐 여러 가지 감정이 담겨 있지만 또 어느 면에서는 시종일관 웃기려는 의도가 들어있는 영화입니다.
야, 씨발, 따라봐. 이 새끼 저거 진짜 콩밥 좀 먹여. 안 되겠다 저거. 야, 잡아. 야, 씨!
Park Chan-wook has always been one of the funniest auteurs working today, even if his films aren't really comedies. He has this great way of creating deadpan, static visual tableaus that are hilarious to hold on and tell a story or a joke in themselves. Instead of riffing until the joke is dead or an over-reliance on dialogue, he employs visual punchlines with brevity and precision.
이게
좌약이에요. 기절한 사람한테 약을 먹일 수가 있어야지.
His sense of humor also usually finds a way of laughing with the characters and the horror of their situation, humanizing them, instead of compromising the very delicately balanced tone by laughing at them. Unlike a lot of genre cinema, the film has a great deal of empathy for its characters, who aren't good people, necessarily. After the pandemic, Oh Dae-soo's initial mysterious 15-year confinement that sparks his quest for revenge certainly hits a little different. The madness of being alone and having so much of your life revolve around the television, and so many of your needs not quite met by it, is something we have a better ability to relate to now, as well as his comedic and uncomfortable attempts to reintegrate into society with other human beings when he's released. The sting of loneliness for him, for Mi-do, and Lee Woo-jin, the film's villain, is realized with a lot of compassion. Speaking of Lee Woo-jin, this really is his film in a lot of ways, and you sympathize with his character and his plight more and more with subsequent rewatches. Ji-tae's performance is incredibly unexpected and versatile, and a big reason for this. The various visual ways that Park Chan-wook foreshadows and enhances the twist by visually drawing comparisons between the men also stood out a lot to me this time around, and the story's shocking culmination almost seems to ask what we as the audience are looking for in a revenge movie. Oh Dae-soo is taunted throughout the film with the choice between exacting vengeance quickly and knowing the full truth. The audience shares this dilemma with him. When you first see the film in this scene particularly, you're like, fuck's sakes, just kill the guy. But you understand completely Oh Dae-soo's need for the truth of why he was imprisoned. Yet what that truth ultimately brings with it is more emotional confusion and despair, recontextualizing sweet moments that seem to provide a tender momentary relief from the violent and propulsive thriller narrative as the most horrifying moments of the entire film. The twist also neuters any revenge Oh Dae-soo could have taken and aligns us uncomfortably with the villain's perspective. If it's your first time seeing the film, it quite literally tricks you into having Woo Jin's exact experience. You're rooting for these two to be together, and then you're terrified that you ever were. Mi-do and Oh Dae-soo weren't in control of their attraction to each other, and by the time he learns that they're father and daughter, the damage is done. Okay, so how big was your initial Star Wars no when this twist happened on the following scale? So you wish they just could have been happy together, huh? Park Chan-wook seems to ask in the final scene. Well, sure, let's just see about that. As with many cinephiles, Oldboy was something of a gateway drug for me in my teens, and it opened the door to not only Park Chan-wook's filmography, but many other great masterpieces of the South Korean New Wave. I remember showing it to a lot of my friends in high school who were like, It does sometimes feel like the product of a different time for movies, but not in ways that weaken or cheapen it. If anything, in ways that weaken and cheapen the films of today, where emotional catharsis and discomfort is played more vaguely even by films that dare to reach for it, and those emotions are often undercut by ironic humor rather than humor that reinforces our sympathy for the characters and identification with their plights. Park Chan-wook sits with Oh Dae-soo at the summit of agony for a long time, multiple times. He lets us feel that great performance, feel the ugliness of it, for way longer than most filmmakers would dare. I left the theater feeling a little drained, but very satisfied. Bottom line, I feel immensely lucky to have been able to see one of my favorite films of all time on the big screen in its best state, and I just wanted to talk about it. It is quite possibly Park Chan-wook's masterpiece to date, though if the also ingenious decision to leave is any indication, he probably has a lot of his best films ahead of him, and I can't wait to see what he does next.